Welcome to the Master Passive Income Show. My name is Dustin Heiner, and I'm here to help you learn how to quit that JOB, that just over broke job, by investing in real estate so you never, ever have to work a job again. Today, super pumped to have somebody who is a fantastic expert on businesses and real estate and combining the two so we have a business that runs itself, an automated business. Now, when you build a real estate business, you want to make sure you have the systems and processes and procedures, and at the same time, make sure that it's running properly, because we don't just buy real estate as a piece of property that itself is a business. No, our business owns inventory, and that inventory makes us money every single month. I am super blessed to be able to bring on a really good friend of mine. He's in my mastermind, my personal mastermind. His name's Tom Sylvester. Tom, thank you so much for being on the show, man.
Man, always a pleasure, and super excited to dive into this topic today.
Man, you number one, are a real estate investor. Number two, you're a business owner. You have your own liquor store, wine and liquor store, which is super amazing. It's growing, expanding. You also coach companies to go from 6 figures to 7 figures. Man, it's just, honestly, I'm super pumped to have you on, because I always teach my students, everybody listening, I'm saying, we build the business first. And there's so much into it. I have an expert like you who's shown me how to build the business to come on. So this is great. So talk to us a little about your background. How did you get into real estate investing and then now business building, and walk us through that process?
Yeah, well, I think like most people, I was on that traditional path, go to school, get good grades, go to college, take on a ton of debt, try to find a job, and it just kind of got into that debt cycle. And so I remember coming out of college, I'd met my then girlfriend, now wife, and I started looking ahead. We started talking about, like, what do things look like after college? And I didn't like the path I was on. I was like, man, I do not want to sit in a cubicle for the next 45 years. Like, that's not what life's about. And so I set a goal to retire, quote unquote, by 35. Now, I figured that was long enough to figure out how I was going to get there, because I had done nothing in terms of like real estate investing or anything before that. Figured it was long enough to figure it out, but not long enough that I was going to miss out on life. And so fast forward, tried a bunch of businesses to try to get this thing working. And every time I would try something, either it wouldn't work, or more than likely my wife would then say, why are you doing that? It's too risky. Go get a job. We got to pay off this debt. So I ended up investing in one of those weekend seminars. Everyone heard the ad on the radio, right? Like, hey, come to this free real estate training. You'll learn to make millions of dollars, blah, blah, blah. So for anyone that isn't aware, what ends up happening is you go to this free 2-hour session. They don't actually tell you anything. They get you hyped up. Then you go to like a $500 weekend, and then they upsell you into these expensive courses. Now, I'm not against investing. I've invested a ton of money into my education, but those weekend seminars are not actually going to teach you real estate or this topic business. Often what they're set up to do is to make that company money and get you excited, but not actually have you succeed. So long story short, once I spent all that money, I realized that I needed to make it back. So I actually started investing in real estate. And I realized that, the money in that case was much better spent to get the first property. And I was going to learn way more from that. Now, granted, had I had somebody that could guide me through a little bit easier, that would have saved me a ton. But the key thing with so much of this is to get started. And then I figured out a lot of lessons along the way of how to actually run it like a business. And then from there, it expanded into other different businesses. And all of it was working towards getting me retired by 35. Ended up doing it at 32, and then said, you know what? The goal wasn't really retirement. The goal was to have freedom, which is what we all desire, so that I could then do what I wanted. And that's kind of where we're at this point now.
Freedom is so amazing to not, you feel free when you stop working for somebody else. That's literally what it comes out to. You're like, my goodness, I literally have 40 plus hours of my life back. And some people are working 50, 60, 70 hours a week for somebody else. You have that much time back to develop into your family, develop into your relationships, serve other people. It's just so much better when you have that freedom. So in walking through that process of investing and buying your first property, and then now realizing, like, were you always like the business mindset when you first started investing, or did you like buying that rental property, or was that something that had to develop over time? And is that something we can develop in our own real estate investing business?
Yeah, well, what was funny was like hindsight 2020, I always had some sort of like side business or whatever. So I had kind of like done these businesses, but I never really treated them like a business. And that's what happened when I started real estate investing. And I find most real estate investors run into. And for anyone that's read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, really good book, good on motivation. But there's a key concept there called I forget what it was called, but like, are you an employee? Are you self-employed? Are you a business owner, or are you an investor? And
Cash
so
flow
the first
quadrant.
time cash flow quadrant, thank you. And so I was like, all right, well, I'm an employee. I want to become an investor. So like, let me just like fast line there. And so, I went out, I remember I went out and made like business cards and I put like real estate investor on there, like all the stuff to tell me I was an investor. But ironically, what happened when I bought the first property, uh, I was doing everything. I had to find the property. I had to negotiate with the seller, and I was so nervous. I had to then talk to the existing tenants and end up evicting one of them. I then had to renovate the property, and I was like, "Holy crap!" I thought I was taking a shortcut going from employee to investor. What I really did was I went from employee to owning a job. So I actually had another job, and now I owned it, and I had to do everything. So very quickly, I was like, crap, this is not what it's cut out to be. There's got to be a better way. And so, talking to friends, going back to that quadrant, I was like, oh, well, the problem is I wasn't treating this like a business. So I just created another job for myself. And so I really asked myself this key question. And knowing that I wanted that freedom, I said, what would need to be true for this business, not this real estate investment, this business to run without me? And I didn't realize how powerful that question was. But when I asked it, it was like, okay, well, what do the numbers need to look like? Okay, now that I know the numbers, okay, what jobs need to be done? So I made a list of all the jobs. Then I said, okay, so who could do these jobs? Like, what are the types of people that I would need on my team? And then I said, what systems do we need so that the business would run? And once I had that all laid out, it was basically a map to say, all right, one step at a time, I'm going to take one of these things and get it off of my plate. And I'm going to, change my title from real estate investor to CEO because I want to own the business and I want other people to do it. So that question really helped me understand all the things I was doing and step by step get other people to start doing that.
And repeat that question. You told me, like, you've helped me grow in my business. So I know the question, but what's the question for everybody else so they know? Because everybody, you need to hear this. This is the question that you need to be asking yourself in order for you to become free.
Absolutely. So write this down. So it is, what needs to be true for this business to run without me?
And with that, you can ask that question, what needs to be true, and break it down even more granular. What needs to be true for this property to be managed without me? You just need to figure that out. And honestly, that's what we do as entrepreneurs, as business owners, as investors. We're problem solvers. That's a small problem that you have. Like, what needs to be true? Well, you figure that out. In fact, Tom, you'll appreciate this. What I do with my kids, my kids will say, I say, hey, I need you to do this. They say, well, Daddy, I don't know how to do that. And I said, well, son, you're a Heiner. Heiners figure things out. That's what we do. We figure you can figure it out. I can tell you how to do it, but I know, because obviously I'm their dad. I know exactly that they should be able to figure it out. But I'm like, you're a Heiner. You figure this is what we do. So everybody listening, if you're listening to this, that's what we do is we figure it out. We're problem solvers. And the reason why I'm bringing Tom on to the podcast right now and to the show is because he's going to be speaking at the Real Estate Wealth Builders Conference. And the Real Estate Wealth Builders Conference is all about community where we're helping each other out. And so as you see Tom coming in talking about business and systems and processes, he's going to be talking about that at RubeCon as well. And so what I wanted to do to bring you on, Tom, was to walk through what it looks like and touch on a little bit, or actually as much as you can, that we're also going to be talking about at RubeCon as well. And I'll be completely honest to everybody listening to this. If you come to RubeCon, Tom, and honestly, all the other speakers, I only bring my friends to this conference. They're all so approachable. And you go up to them and say, hey, I have a question for you. They're not going to go to the session and then go fly back home. They don't just come just to try to make money. No, they come because they believe in the vision of building a community and helping people out. So I brought Tom here because he's going to be a wealth of knowledge as well as all the other speakers. So Tom, talk to us about the idea of running this business. And I mean, if you want to start at the beginning, like how do we start it? We can talk about that. Like, how do we run it? Like, what are your thoughts? Like, where's the first process? Because you do this all the time. You coach businesses to go from 6 to 7 figures. Where do we start if we're going from being the investor to being the CEO, the business owner?
Yeah. First place we start is always the vision, because we can build any business that we want. But if we don't have a vision of where we're going, it's just like getting in the car and driving without a destination. So I always tell people, I'm like, look, it's just like a GPS. Here's our starting point where we're at today. Here's the vision where we want to go. And then what we're going to do is we're going to build an initial roadmap. Now, just like, if you're on a trip, you're going to start following that, and then maybe you take a wrong turn, and then you got to kind of redirect. Or maybe the road is closed and the path we thought we were going to go on, we got to adjust. But if we start with that vision and a high level roadmap of where we're going, we can always then have the guided next step and checking in along the way to make sure we're ultimately going to get to that destination. And for us, that destination should be freedom, so we have options. So I like to start with that vision. And then something that my wife and I really sat down and did that helped a lot was we got super clear on, like, how much money do we need to make from this business? How much money do we need to personally bring home? And then what we did was we reverse engineered all of the numbers. So we said, for example, if we need to bring 5,000 a month home, all right, for a average property, after we take all the expenses and everything else out, how much can we take out of each one? Once we figured that out, then we just divided it out and said, okay, well, we need this many properties or this many units. The strategy that we chose, which everyone needs to figure out their strategy, was going to be long-term rentals. So we did mostly multifamilies, but different strategies among that. But then we got super clear. So it was like, okay, this is what we need to achieve that freedom. This is how many properties we're going to need with this numbers and this profit. And then it was just like one property at a time, starting to look at how do we acquire it. Now, the one thing I didn't do that I know you preach and I would recommend for everyone else, actually start thinking about the business and setting some of those things up before you get the first property. So what I did was I just dove in and I figured a lot of this out along the way. And I could have saved myself a lot of time, effort, frustration had I actually done a little bit of time business planning beforehand. But regardless, once you get started, it really comes back to what things need to get done, and then what are you doing versus hiring someone else. And in most cases, if you can analyze a property in a good way and make sure that you're like having costs for everything, then you can hire people and still be profitable. And that was one of the things I didn't do early on, was I didn't include all of my time in it. So I got done with the first property and I'm like, okay, well, now I can't really hire other people because I didn't incorporate that in.
I got to say that. So, Tom, I had 1 million downloads on the podcast. And so on the show where I gave out the millionth download, I said, hey, I hit 1 million downloads. I'm going to give this out for free. I'm going to give out the green light deal analyzer. So I'm going to give it out again and the reason why is because everybody listening, Tom is the one that he had the guts of this analyzer. And I said, hey, Tom, what do you do? Anyways, like business, what do you do? He said, oh, this is what I have. And he sent it over to me. And I was like, this is awesome. I love this thing. It's so clear. Anybody can use it. You could even send it to a virtual assistant and say, put in these numbers. There's like 6 numbers. And then this system does everything for you. And so taking Tom's green light analyzer that he has, and then I added my own spin of it, things that I need for master passive income and everything. But I'm going to give it out to everybody literally for free one more time, because in honor of Tom. So if you go to my website, go to the master passive income and look for the green light deal analyzer, use the promo code podcast. Actually, no, it was 1 million. No, I didn't use podcast. It's 1 million. So I'll put in the show notes. I'll make sure it's there, but 1 million. So 1 and then 6 zeros. And then you'll get it literally for free in honor of Tom, because Tom, he just errs on the side of giving. That's why I told you why I brought him to Rubicon. That's why he and I get along so well, is because that's what we love to do, is just help other people. So go to my site, go get the green light deal analyzer literally for free. I'm charging money for it, obviously, right now. Use the promo code 1 million. So 1 and 6 zeros. So Tom, I love that green light deal analyzer because it systematizes it. Now, what else? So vision, my vision was to quit my job, but that's not everybody's vision. Vision could be, travel the world or whatever it might be. We definitely need to come up with that. Once somebody has that vision and we start going down that path of, developing all these processes in the business, what is the next step after we did the 1 and 2?
Yeah. So, what we're really going to do is make sure that we've got everything working first. So, for example, we've got the vision, great. We've got the strategy we're going to take, and then we want to get started. And sometimes people will spend a lot of time planning. And this was actually something I talked to people about at RubeCon last year. So, people that hadn't bought their first property yet, I asked them why they hadn't, and a lot of them were afraid to jump in. So I'm definitely a huge proponent of planning, but guess what? We learn when we actually start doing. So what I challenge everyone to do is however long you think it's going to take to like really get that first property, I would actually challenge you to say, all right, well, what would need to be true for me to do that in the next 3 months? Put whatever timeline you want on there. But what this is going to do is basically cut out all of the fluff to actually getting started and then get us started with that first property. Because once you have that first one and using that green light analyzer, it's huge because when I did my first property, as I mentioned, I didn't include all these factors and I didn't actually analyze it properly. So using that, you're going to be able to punch a couple of numbers in. I love that you're talking about having somebody else do this because it's going to give you really, like for anyone that isn't aware of this, you punch a couple numbers in, and if the deal looks good, it's going to give you 3 green lights and say, go ahead at this price. If it doesn't, it's going to give you a red light on where it's off. And then you adjust the numbers so you can figure out, is this going to be a good deal? What offer can I make? So from there, we do want to get a little bit of the business structure in place. So I do recommend, getting some of the team members, your accountant, your CPA on board just to have everything set up so that by the time you buy the first property, you've got everything then ready to go from there.
I love that. And so with the entire team, can you run through the idea of what you think a team would look like, the people that you need in your business as even before you buy your first property? Or let's say somebody already has 2 properties, like, man, I really need to put in these systems and I really need to get these right people in place.
Yep. So if we think about any business, right, and real estate is a business, there's 4 main functions of the business. So we've got marketing, which is attracting our deals. So we're going to have a marketing team, which might just be you at the beginning, or you might be able to bring people in that are bringing you potential deals, right? So we've got the marketing piece there. Then the sales is us actually then evaluating, coming to an agreement, and buying the property. Then we've got fulfillment, which is actually how do we then run the property? How do we then get, in my case, tenants in and all the stuff of delivering our service, which is, real estate to people. And then we've got operations, which is the systems, the finance, all of this stuff to make it work. So what I recommend is that when you think about those functions, go through each one and say, what are the key things? How am I going to acquire this first property? What team members can help me with that? So is it finding wholesalers in your areas that will start bringing you deals? Is it having a realtor that will start sending you stuff? Now, I rarely buy stuff off the MLS just because it's not the best place to go. But even getting started, part of what we want to do is get reps in. So being able to have people bring as many deals to you as possible, you'll use that green light deal analyzer to then start to understand what's a good deal and what isn't. So if you think about that for marketing, then for sales, understanding who do you need on your team to sell or ultimately to buy. So this is where I'll look at having depending on your state and how you close, having a lawyer or whoever's going to help you through that process. Then when we look at fulfillment, as you're actually going, if you're going to have to renovate this property, what contractors do you need to do that renovation? Who's going to help you actually fill it? How are you going to advertise? And then finance, making sure that you have your bookkeeping set up, having an accountant that will help you with that. So I like to just kind of have a map of all of those functions and then try to get the right team members in place because I want to be in the CEO role and where I'm an expert. I don't want to have to try to figure out how do I manage books or how do I do these things. That's not the core function. The core function is going to be I'm the CEO, I'm acquiring the property, and I'm putting the team members in place that will help me with all of those.
Yeah, I love that. And you've coached lots and lots of companies go from 6 to 7 figures, not just obviously real estate investing, but companies in general. Like you just know that the process of having a business, there are certain key functions that we all have to do. What lessons or yeah, what roadblocks, lessons, what things have like what problems have other business owners come across that are like, hey, this normally comes across, people see this, or what roadblocks do they have, or what lessons learned that we need to learn way before we actually get there?
Yep. A couple key ones stand out. First one is not knowing their numbers. Numbers guide the business. That's why we've got this green light deal analyzer, because we need to understand the numbers. When I talk about that, it's really twofold. So you have your financial numbers, right? So everyone should get familiar with a profit and loss statement, which is basically how much money is coming in, what expenses are coming out, what taxes ultimately am I going to have coming out, and then what's left at the end, and that's my profit. So we need to have a basic financial understanding and understand those numbers, and then we need to understand KPIs or key performance indicators. So if we're looking at this and we go back to marketing, sales, fulfillment, and operations, we should be able to have one or two numbers on each of those that tell us how the business is doing. So people ask me today, they're like, Tom, how do you run multiple businesses without being tied into them day to day? And the answer is I have a basic dashboard that gives me the key numbers and the key information I need for each business. And then I have team members that I can then work with to help implement and solve the problems. So number one is we've got to have the numbers, because the numbers tell the true story of the business and help you make decisions.
And everybody who's been with me at any time, at any length, will realize, and I've said this many times, I'm not a numbers person. In fact, numbers and you don't have to be like, for what, and the reason why I'm saying this, because you don't have to be a numbers person to do what Tom's telling you to do. Like, numbers in my head, they go in and then they flutter away. They literally just kind of evaporate. They're like 2 + 2 = it's gone. That's just how my brain works. It's sad. It's really sad. If I'm golfing, I have to count. Okay, I hit 1, 2. It's literally sad. But these key KPIs, the key performance indicators, there's ways to systematize this. Tom's absolutely showing me how to do this, to where you're just almost like a green light deal analyzer. Like, the numbers are automatically put in by other people or other ways and systems. And it's like, it's green or it's yellow or it's red, like, attack it or address it. And so there are ways to do this. Now, that's why we're bringing Tom over to the Real Estate Wealth Builders Conference. Actually, big reason, he's a good friend of mine. So that's number one. I'm bringing all my friends together so you can hang out with me and all my friends, but we're all experts in what we do. So that's why we're bringing Tom. So Tom, you've given us so much great insights. How can somebody find you? How can they maybe they might even have a 6-figure business that's outside of real estate investing that they need to work with you. Like, how can they reach out to you and find you online?
Yeah, absolutely. First thing I'd recommend is go pick up a copy of the book my wife and I wrote. It's called Lifestyle Builders. You can get it on Amazon. It's going to give you a lot of the lessons, mistakes, and steps that we recommend to get the business started and to get it to the point where you can leave your job. Beyond that, if you're actually looking for, if you have that like 6-figure business and you're working to go to 7 or beyond, you can go to 2x.co and you'll be able to see the book we've got there, as well as some of the additional information on how we actually help those business owners scale.
Love it, man. Hey, I'm super excited to be able to hang out again. And what's great is, we're obviously, you and I are friends, and we've known each, I don't know, 5 years probably now. It was actually 2017 is when we first met. And now, like, all of our lives just keep getting, because we bounce ideas off of each other. We also encourage each other and build each other up. Same thing with like Rubicon. Like, that's what we're all about, is helping each other progress, keep growing to the next level. And so, yeah, it's super exciting to have you on the show here, but then also with us. I'm excited to share with all of my audience because you've helped me in my business so much. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on the show, man.
Absolutely. And just a final kind of, I guess, pitch for Rubicon. You and I met at a conference, and I will tell you that the biggest impact, not only to me growing personally, but also with success in my businesses, has been getting around the right people. So early on in my career, when I didn't know anyone and I wasn't invested, one of the best things I did was just got around people that were doing the things I wanted to do and living the lifestyle that I wanted. So by getting around people like that, it's crazy how much you'll learn, and then really how much you'll see as possible. Because the other factor that holds so much of us back is just our personal mindset. And I'll just share quickly a story that you shared at Rubicon last year about really somebody breaking the 4-minute mile. And it was like, up until, if anyone hasn't heard this, up until Roger Bannister, I believe, broke the 4-minute mile, everyone thought it was impossible. But once he did it, then somebody else came and broke it within like a matter of months. And so it's the same thing with business and success in life. We often think things are impossible if we haven't had those people in our lives that show us that it's not and that it is possible. getting around a group of people like this, especially the ones that are giving it away and all there to help each other, it's going to be one of the best investments that you can have.
Love it, man. You're 100% right. And the very first conference I went to was one that we met. And from that point forward, I just try to go as many as I can, because the more people that you're around that are good, genuine people that want to help each other out, man, life just keeps getting better and better. So awesome, Tom. Thank you so much for being on the show, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, man. Looking forward to RoopCon.